thought money could tame anything, even the most dangerous wild stallion no one else dared to touch. The billionaire rancher brought the horse to his land, confident it would break like the rest. But this horse was different. It didn't respond to force, or fear, or control. Every trainer he hired walked away defeated. Then came a quiet farmhand, someone he barely noticed, until the horse did something unexpected. It stopped running. And for the first time, it didn't see a master in the rancher. It saw a rival for something far more dangerous than control. It saw love. The Dawson Valley Ranch stretched wide under a pale morning sky, where dust never fully settled and the wind always seemed to be moving something, even when nothing else did. It was the kind of place built on money and control. Everything had a place, and everything was expected to obey. Victor Hale owned it all. He was a wealthy rancher known across the region, not because he spoke often, but because he always got what he wanted. Land deals, cattle routes, water rights, nothing slipped past him for long. People said he did not believe in luck. Only decisions and outcomes. That morning, he stood near the main corral with his hands behind his back, watching something that had already cost him time, money, and pride. A stallion stood inside the reinforced pen. It was dark-coated, lean, and restless in a way that did not fade with time. The horse had been captured 3 days earlier near the northern cliffs after injuring 3 wranglers and breaking through 2 separate enclosures. It had not been calm since. Most wild horses learned fear after capture. This one did not. It learned resistance instead. A ranch hand approached carefully. "We tried again this morning, sir. Same result." Victor did not look away from the horse. Which part failed? The approach. It does not respond to voice or pressure. It reacts before contact. Victor nodded slightly, as if filing the information away rather than reacting to it. Then changed the approach. The ranch hand hesitated. "We have already gone through 2 trainers. The last one says it cannot be handled." Victor finally turned his head. His expression was calm, but there was a quiet firmness behind it. "Everything can be handled," he said. "It is only a matter of method." By midday, another trainer was brought in. He was experienced, known for working with difficult stock across 3 counties. He entered the pen carrying rope and confidence. At first, he spoke softly, circling the stallion, trying to establish control through movement and patience. The horse watched him closely, every muscle tight. Then the trainer made his first attempt to close distance. The stallion struck forward without warning. The rope snapped loose. The man fell hard against the fence, pain flashing across his arm before he was pulled out by the ranch hands. By the time they reached him, it was clear his arm was broken. The pen fell silent again. The horse stood in the center, chest rising and falling steadily, as if nothing had changed. No fear, no panic. Just defiance that did not fade. Victor watched the entire scene without moving. Most men would have called it failure. Some would have called it impossible. Victor did neither. Instead, he studied the animal the way he studied land before building on it. Nearby, a young woman worked near the stables, brushing down saddles and carrying water buckets. Her name was Clara. She had arrived only weeks earlier, hired quietly through a ranch connection that asked few questions. Most people on the ranch barely noticed her. She did her work, kept to herself, and spoke only when spoken to. But her attention had drifted more than once toward the pen. While others saw danger, Clara saw something different. The horse was not chaotic. It was guarded. Every reaction came from pressure, not aggression alone. She did not look away when it moved. She watched it the way someone watches a storm they have learned to understand. Victor noticed her standing there for the first time that afternoon. He did not ask who she was yet. But he remembered where she stood. And for a reason he did not yet name, that mattered. Clara did not plan to become part of anything on the Dawson Valley Ranch. She was there to work, earn her keep, and move on when the season changed. That had been her pattern for years. Stay quiet, stay useful, stay unseen. But the stallion changed that pattern without meaning to. Each morning, after finishing her tasks in the stables, Clara found herself walking toward the same corral. Not because anyone told her to, and not because she believed she could fix what others had failed to handle. She simply wanted to understand it. At first, the horse reacted the way it did to everyone else. It paced. It watched. It stayed tense, ready to strike if anything crossed its limit. Clara never crossed that limit. She stopped a safe distance from the fence and stood still. No rope. No commands. No attempt to reach through the bars. She only stayed present long enough for the horse to notice she was not like the others. The ranch hands saw her and shook their heads. "Waste of time," one of them muttered. "That horse does not care who watches it." Clara did not respond. She returned the next day. And the next. She began to notice small changes that others ignored. The stallion did not react to every sound. It reacted to movement that felt sudden or forced. When the wind blew and the ranch was quiet, it would sometimes stand still for long stretches, breathing slower than before. It was not mindless rage. It was constant alertness, like something that had learned the world was not safe and refused to forget it. One afternoon, Victor Hale came to the stables without announcement. He had heard the reports, though he treated them as distractions more than anything important. A farmhand standing near a fence was not unusual. But Victor noticed Clara immediately because she did not behave like someone trying to prove anything. She simply stood there. The stallion was in the center of the pen, head slightly lowered, watching her. It did not lunge. It did not charge. It remained still in a way it had not done for anyone else. Victor narrowed his eyes slightly. "Who is that?" The foreman answered, "Just a stable worker." "No." Victor said nothing more at first. But he stayed. Clara shifted her weight slightly, then stepped a little closer to the fence. The stallion lifted its head. For a brief moment, its muscles tightened, but it did not move forward. Instead, it watched her as if trying to decide something. Victor had seen horses react to fear, to dominance, to pain. He had built a fortune understanding how living things responded to pressure. But this was different. There was no command in Clara's posture. No attempt to control the animal. No effort to force submission. And yet, the horse did not treat her as a threat. It simply did not fight her presence. After several minutes, Victor spoke without looking away from the pen. "What did she do to it?" The foreman hesitated. "Nothing, sir. She just stands there." Victor's expression tightened slightly. "That is not an answer." But the foreman had none better. Clara left before sunset. She did not look for approval or acknowledgement. She simply returned to her duties as if nothing unusual had happened. Victor watched her go. Something about the scene stayed with him longer than he expected. Not because the horse had calmed, but because it had chosen not to react the same way it reacted to everyone else. That evening, Victor reviewed reports from earlier trainers. Every method used had relied on force or control in some form. Rope work, pressure techniques, loud commands, speed to break resistance before it built. None of it had worked. And yet a farmhand with no training had achieved something they had not. Not control, but stillness. Victor leaned back in his chair, thinking through it carefully. He did not like unanswered problems, especially ones on his own land. Outside, the wind moved across the valley again, brushing dust against the barn walls. And in the distance, the stallion stood quietly for the first time since its capture, watching the place where Clara had been. Victor Hale did not like uncertainty. It was the one thing his life had not trained him to accept. Land could be measured, cattle could be sold, and men could be persuaded or replaced. But what he had seen at the corral refused to fit into any of those rules. So the next morning, he decided to handle it himself. He did not announce it. He did not call for help. He simply walked to the stallion's pen alone, wearing his usual coat and carrying nothing but a short training whip that he barely intended to use. Clara was already nearby when he arrived. She stood at a distance, watching quietly, as if she expected him. Victor glanced at her once. "Step away," he said. Clara did not move immediately. "It does not respond well to force," she replied. Victor's tone stayed steady. "Everything responds to force. It is just a matter of timing." He opened the gate and stepped inside. The stallion reacted instantly. It turned sharply, hooves digging into the dirt. Its eyes locked on him with the same intensity it showed every other handler before an attack. The air inside the pen changed. Tension rose quickly, sharp and immediate. Victor raised one hand, not to calm it, but to establish presence. He began to circle slowly, studying the animal the way he would study a business problem that refused to settle. Clara watched from outside the fence, her hands still at her sides. The stallion lunged. Victor stepped back just in time, feeling the rush of movement pass close enough to disturb the dust near his boots. He did not flinch. He adjusted his position and continued. "Easy," he said firmly. The horse struck the fence again, harder this time. Wood rattled. Dust rose. The sound echoed across the yard, drawing attention from workers who stopped what they were doing. Victor tightened his grip on the whip but did not strike. Instead, he tried to force the stallion into a corner where it would have fewer options to move. That was the moment the horse changed direction completely. Instead of retreating or attacking, it turned toward Clara. It stopped at the center of the pen, facing her directly. Victor froze. For the first time since entering, the stallion ignored him completely. Clara did not step closer. She did not speak. She only met its gaze. The horse's breathing slowed. Victor looked between them, his expression tightening as something unfamiliar unfolded in front of him. The animal that had injured trained men and shattered reinforced enclosures now stood still, as if the fight had drained out of it the moment Clara became its focus. Victor stepped forward slowly. "Move," he said sharply, attempting to regain control. The stallion reacted again, but not toward him. It shifted slightly, placing itself between Victor and Clara, not in aggression, but in refusal. It would not allow him to close the space. Clara finally spoke, her voice calm but low. "You are pushing it too hard." Victor turned his head slightly toward her. "And you think standing still is the answer?" "I think it is already afraid," she said. "You are just proving it right." That sentence stayed in the air longer than anything else that day. Victor exhaled slowly, as if trying to contain frustration. Then he stepped back. The stallion did not relax immediately, but it stopped pressing forward. The tension in its body eased just slightly, enough to show the difference between readiness and exhaustion. Victor left the pen without another word. Outside the fence, he paused, looking back at both of them. For the first time, he did not feel like he was dealing with an animal problem. He felt like he was dealing with a boundary he could not measure. Later that evening, he stood alone in his office, reviewing plans for the horse again. Every method he had used or approved had relied on the same principle. Pressure until resistance broke. Control until submission followed. But the stallion had not broken. And Clara, without trying, had reached something none of them could force. Victor closed the folder slowly. For the first time, he did not think about how to win. He thought about why winning was not happening at all. The weather shifted over Dawson Valley without warning. By late afternoon, heavy clouds rolled in from the west, swallowing the light and turning the ranch into a dull gray shape against the land. Wind picked up fast, pulling at fences and rattling the wooden barns. Most of the horses became restless. They kicked against their stalls, snorted, and paced in tight circles. The ranch hands moved quickly, trying to secure what they could before the storm grew worse. Inside the main corral, the stallion reacted differently. At first, it was calm. Then a loud crack of thunder broke across the sky, and everything changed. It struck the ground hard, spinning in place, breathing sharply. The sound of wind against the fencing made it worse. It began pacing fast, circling with rising panic. One of the ranch hands grabbed a rope. "We need to secure it." Clara stepped forward immediately. "Do not go in." The man frowned. "It is going to break something or itself." Clara shook her head once. "Not if you leave it alone." They hesitated. From across the yard, Victor arrived, coat tight against the wind. He saw the situation immediately and moved closer. "What is happening?" he asked. "It is spooked," one of the hands said. "Storm is setting it off." Victor looked at the pen. The stallion had begun striking the ground again, reacting to every flash of lightning. Clara did not look away from it. It does not handle pressure well when it cannot see where it is coming from. Victor studied her. And you think standing there changes that? I think forcing it will make it worse, she said. Another loud crack of thunder rolled overhead. The stallion reared up, striking the fence hard enough to shake the posts. The sound made one of the younger workers step back quickly. Clara moved without asking permission. She opened the gate and walked inside. Victor's voice cut through the wind. Clara! She did not stop. Inside the pen, the stallion turned sharply toward her. For a moment, it looked ready to strike. The tension was immediate. No one outside moved. Clara stopped a safe distance away. She did not raise her hands. She did not speak loudly. She only stood where she was and kept her position steady. The wind pushed against her, but she did not step back. Another flash of lightning lit the sky. The stallion reacted again, but this time Clara did not change her stance. She simply stayed where she was, breathing slowly, watching it without challenge. Minutes passed. The storm continued overhead, but something inside the pen began to shift. The horse stopped circling as fast. Its movements slowed. Its breathing deepened slightly, though it still remained alert. Victor watched closely from outside the fence. He had seen fear before in animals, but never this kind of response to it. It was not submission. It was recognition of something steady in the middle of chaos. Clara did not try to approach it. She did not try to calm it with words or force. She simply remained present, like she had done from the beginning. Eventually, the stallion lowered its head. The storm still roared above them, but inside the pen, the movement eased. Victor noticed something then that he had missed before. The horse did not trust control. It trusted consistency. When Clara finally stepped back out of the pen, the stallion did not follow. It remained where it was, calmer than it had been since arriving at the ranch. Victor looked at her for a long moment. "You should not have gone in there," he said quietly. Clara replied simply, "It needed to know it was not alone." Victor said nothing after that. But for the first time, he began to understand that what he had been trying to build was not control at all. It was something the horse would never give him, and something he had never learned how to offer. Days later, Victor stood by the fence alone, watching the stallion move quietly inside the pen. It no longer struck the walls. It no longer searched for escape. It simply existed, steady and alert, as if it had learned the shape of its new world. Clara approached but did not stand beside him. Victor spoke first. "It trusts you." Clara shook her head. "It trusts what does not hurt it." He looked at her, then at the horse. For the first time, Victor understood he could buy land, build fences, and command men, but he could not own what refused to be broken. And the horse had already made its choice. What began as a simple attempt to control a wild stallion turned into something neither Victor nor Clara expected. The horse was never just an animal to be broken. It was something that responded to patience, silence, and a kind of understanding that could not be forced. And in the middle of it all, Victor learned a truth he had never faced before. Not everything valuable can be owned. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more emotional and powerful ranch stories filled with conflict, healing, and unexpected connections. Comment below and tell me what you think. Was Victor ever in control, or was he always learning something he could not buy? And share this story with someone who believes that even the most broken things can still find trust again.